morning, everyone. We'll call this meeting of the Board of Supervisors to order. And roll call, please.
Here.
I'd like to make that announcement again. I'm sorry, the microphone wasn't on. Supervisors Smith and Hamburg are absent by prearrangement. Supervisor Brown?
Here.
Supervisor Pinches?
Here.
Chair McCallum?
Here. And I'd like to ask Lee Howard to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we will first go to public expression for items not on the agenda. And J.R. Rose, is that you?
Chair, members of the board, staff, my name is J.R. Rose, and I want to talk about this Brown Act. I've sit here in both there in this chambers, also in the city chambers. I watch people get up. I watch people speak. I've seen times where the boards, chairs of the boards, of whichever they're in, whether they're here or anywhere else, give extra time or stuff to people that talk. In the Brown Act, it says it's up to 3 minutes, but there's also a stipulation if it's an agenda deal in here, it says up to 10 minutes at the discretion of the chair. And sometimes I take exception, especially when I figure that there's something important that has to be talked about. And I realize I've always stayed within the rules. I don't remember ever going over the time of being out of the rules. I've stayed with them. Sometimes I get a little ticked because I get cut off in the middle of what I want to say. But the ideal is that what I had to say had to do with the marijuana laws in 931. And I wanted a little bit more time. What I'll do is I'll tell you this way. I usually bring what I do to the local authorities and to have them accomplish it, whether it's with the environmentalists, air quality control, whatever. But since marijuana is against the federal law, next time I get where I can't smell, and I smell it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 4 months of the year, I'm no longer going to bring it to my local establishment. I'm going to take it to the federal government because I get no cooperation here on this. I get no enforcement on it. There's other departments that I've dealt with here in the county that I'm proud of, especially your environmental health. I've always got good service out of it. They've always come back and they've done what they've had to do. Air quality control here says that you have to have 3 complaints. 3 complaints. What about the people that are afraid to come up and speak because they're afraid of what happens to them? Because they're afraid of who these marijuana growers are. They're not too sure. They hear all these bad stories. But yeah, I'm a little perturbed, like I said. I think that sometimes people should. I've seen people who stand up here who are lawyers that talk for, supposed to be in 20 minutes, talk for 35, 45 minutes. Board never shuts them off. Same thing in city council, never shut them off. I think it's time that some of this other consideration should be put to the local people instead of just who the people are in Dales. And I see I've only got 19 seconds, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else to address the board for public expression for items not on the agenda? Seeing no one come forward, I'd ask the clerk, have we given proper notice of today's meeting?
Yes, we have.
And so we only have the consent calendar. We have 1 item on the consent calendar. We can either take public comment or take a motion first. So we will go first.
Let's go to public comment.
Okay, we will go first to public comment. Ann Mulgard.
Good morning, Ann Mulgard, resident of Mendocino County, only speaking today. I wanted to address the proposed decrease of supervisor salary, and I must say I'm pretty baffled. And if I were more skeptical, I would say it's election year pandering. There is no way that the job you are doing should be paid $61,000 a year. That is ridiculous. I understand that you want to take a 10% cut, and that's great. But if you take 10% cut from something that was already absurdly low, it doesn't make any sense. What you end up doing is disqualifying anybody who didn't buy property in Mendocino County before the year 2000, anybody who's under 50 from serving, anybody who didn't inherit money. And it's just not the way we want Mendocino County to run. If you're paying a CEO and a county council a comparable salary because you want the best and the brightest, I want the best and the brightest for you all. I just don't want landed gentry who's semi-interested in politics and they're the only ones who can afford to do it. But that's the system that I think you're creating by lowering this salary. What about people raising kids and trying to send them to college so that they can come back and be of great service? I think there's a difference between public service and being a servant. Servants aren't really paid, or maybe public serfs, that serfs aren't paid. I've certainly done public service. I'd love to show you my scars from Peace Corps when little tiny things would crawl into my body. And for that, I was not paid. That's a Peace Corps experience, and that's totally understandable. But that's not the work you all do. You all have to deal with air quality regulations and the complexities of pensions and bonds and retirement systems. And you think you're going to get that for $60,000. And you will, but it will only be one type of person. People who grew up with money or who inherited money or who made it big. And that's going to mean that you only have one type of opinion on the board. You don't have a variety of opinions because you're all going to come from the same place because nobody else can afford to do your job and either pay off their student loans, pay off their law school loans, or send their children to college. It's a public service because you're serving the public. It's not public serfdom. My time is up.
Thank you. Is there anyone else to address the board on this item? Please come forward, state your name for the record.
Good morning, Lee Howard. As you'll recall, I was here a few weeks ago and asked about the pay, and since then I had gone to the auditor controller and got a printout of all you all's money that you make. I had just heard Ann, and I guess I can say I appreciate what she said. I'm not so sure that I agree with that. You know, I've watched this Board of Supervisors almost now for 40 years, and I've seen the good and the bad come. But I've also seen, especially this time around, that you all took a pay cut voluntarily. I say you all because one of you didn't. Ms. Smith chose not to. And she made roughly 80 grand, you're making 60 grand. I think it should be equitable, and I know a lot of people don't know why you're here today setting this today. That the way the statutes set up, that it has to be put in place. So it's a bad educational thing on your part to not really let everybody know that. But the dollar amount be damned, there should be equity, and there should be somebody that when you file for election, you know what you're going to make. That there isn't this squabbling and fighting and a voluntary here or there. You set the dollar amount, and I applaud you for doing that. As far as the compensation versus the brain power, I see lots of, especially in this county, a lot of special districts folks out there that don't get a penny. And you can't tell me they're dumb. Maybe some of them are hard-headed, obnoxious, disagreeable, but they get the job done. They're in each and every one of your districts. So I don't think pay in itself, if I had my rathers, I'd say that this should be a democratic society and you're all serving at no cost. You serve voluntarily to your constituents and you stay here a couple years and you get out, or a couple terms and get out. But that's not what we're here for today. I applaud you taking this and moving ahead with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment to this item? Seeing no one come forward, we'll bring it back to the board. And just for clarification, the last speaker's correct. The reason we're having a special meeting is because we need to finalize the adoption of this item prior to the filing period opening for the supervisor's seats. And the item in front of us is adoption of ordinance amending section 3.04.071 of the Mendocino County Code regarding compensation for elected county supervisors. The item is on the consent calendar, and Supervisor Pinches. Supervisor Brown.
Thank you, Chair McCowan, and you stated that correctly. I just have a couple of comments I want to make, and I respect everybody's comments today. But my statement is, we have asked everyone working for the county to take a minimum of a 10% decrease in pay. And Ms. Mulgard, just exactly what you have come up and commented on, we have heard from county employees as well. This topic, this request, was made at the beginning of last year. I brought it forward. Supervisor McCowan supported it at that time. There wasn't a formal item. So I could tell that other supervisors were not supportive. Therefore, bringing this forth this year, I'm very serious about it. I really feel that it's supported by the community. I think it's important to do. That's why we sit here being leaders. We can't, in my opinion, I cannot ask county employees to do something I'm not willing to do myself. Yes, I am up for re-election. This is not being done because of that. It's being done because I think it's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Brown. Supervisor Pinches.
Well, when I was elected 5 years ago, I come forward with a strong argument, and actually was the swing vote, I believe, on to raise the supervisor's salary some 47%. I made the same argument that Ann Mulgard made, but I wasn't near as eloquent as she was today. But things have changed a lot since then. The first thing that's changed is, since that period of time, there's been 35 million Americans lost their home. You know, to cut my salary 10% compared to losing your home is a small part to give up, I think. I am concerned about the ability, especially from the rural areas, to draw, say, somebody from the far reaches of my district to want to be a supervisor, because I certainly want that to happen. And I am concerned about the compensation that allows people to do that. But on the other side is, Lee Howard brought up, you know, we have a lot of, I have a planning commissioner and a fire chief in Laytonville. He goes, Jim Little, he goes to Sacramento quite often on county and issues to do with the fire department and whatnot. And sometimes I feel pretty bad about he's doing that for nothing and I'm taking a salary for doing it. So we have a lot of people out there doing a lot of community work. I know people that go to Plowshares and work there every week for nothing. I mean, the volunteerism in this county is, I don't think it's surpassed by anybody in any county. It's really tremendous. But this is a job that there's a lot to it. I will say that. You know, I'm not educated. I graduated from high school. And sometimes it's pretty hard to keep up with all the issues. But I don't want to go on too long, although it's the only thing on our agenda, so I guess we have a little time to talk about it. But I guess the part of it is, as Carrie brought up, we've asked everybody in this system to take the 10%, and they have, not willingly. And we can make that argument of why they shouldn't take, every county employee can make that same argument of why they shouldn't take it. But what really comes down to is, I just feel better when you're dealing with county employees, when you're asking a county employee, would you do this, would you do that, or, you got to kind of create some sort of an equity. It's good for morale and good for the system. And God knows we need the dollar savings. I mean, that's not even the issue. We're going to be faced next year with, we're in a balanced budget this year, but next year we're going to have to start off the budget cycle with a couple, $3 or $4 million in the red. We're going to have to make the cuts and do different things to get that balanced. How we're going to do it just yet, I'm not sure, but we'll do it because we've balanced the budget every year. But it's overwhelmingly the people feel that we should, share the pain, I guess. And so that's why I support it. But I do have a long-term concern of drawing good people for supervisor's job, because this is it's a very challenging job, and when you're dealing with health care and pension, it's also not just a challenging job, it's a very tough job. I mean, it's when you're telling people no out there, when you're giving out money, you're a hero. When you're taking it back, you're zero. And that's just the way it is. But then again, if somebody don't like the pay, they don't have to file for the job either. So, but overwhelming majority of the people think that we should take the cuts, and that's really what we are as representatives. We have to reflect what the people want. When you start being a politician, don't reflect what the people want, then you're just you're a private interest of yourself, and you're not a public servant. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
I so move.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there additional comment to the motion? I'd just like to add that I agree with everything that Ann Mulgard said, except for the political pandering issue. All of the other arguments, I think, are completely valid. And as Supervisor Brown said, we've heard them from every single one of our employee groups. And it's just a reflection of the dire economic times that we're in, that we have asked all of our groups, no matter how hardworking, no matter how qualified, no matter how dedicated, we've asked them all to take a cut. And my only regret is that we didn't start with ourselves first and set the example. That's the only failing in this action that we're taking here. Virtually every one of our employees throughout the county, they're all being asked to do more with fewer resources, with fewer support, and with an increasing workload. If you talk to the custodians, the groundskeepers, the social service workers who are doing intake on people and evaluating their applications, their caseloads in social services have doubled or even tripled in some cases, I believe. And we're paying them less. So it's, I just don't see how we take any other position than to say that we are going to, as Supervisor Pinchas said, share the pain. Because when they make those same arguments that we just heard today, it's equally true for all of them. So I don't see how we say we're special. And as far as qualified people, it's almost insulting to say that you won't find any qualified people to do this job unless you pay them considerably more than what we're making now. I think there's probably a lot of people sitting at home saying, boy, I bet I could do that job. And we get people coming in trying to help us all the time. So Any additional comments from my colleagues? We'll vote by the, Carrie Brown, did you have another word, or?
Well, I started, but no, let's just vote.
Okay, by the button.
Motion passes with Supervisors Smith and Hamburg absent.
And with that, we are adjourned.